The thunder cracked like God's own anger splitting the November sky over Atlanta. Rain hammered the pavement in sheets so thick I could barely see the iron gate that had just slammed shut behind me, the gate that separated me from the only home my 5-year-old son had ever known. I pulled Zay closer against my chest, trying to shield his small body from the cold. His SpongeBob pajamas were already soaked through. He'd cried himself into an exhausted sleep 20 minutes ago, his little fingers still clutching a fistful of my sweater. Even in sleep, his shoulders shuddered with leftover sobs. The words still rang in my ears. My mother-in-law's words, sharp as broken glass. "Get out! Get out of my house, you worthless parasite! You and that clumsy little brat!" All because Zay had been playing. Just playing the way 5-year-olds do. He'd been pretending his toy truck was a race car, zooming it across the living room floor when he bumped the console table. The antique vase, the one Nomi Ashland claimed was worth $15,000, had wobbled, tipped, and shattered across the marble floor in an explosion of porcelain shards. I dropped to my knees immediately, pulling Zay back from the sharp pieces, apologizing over and over. "I'm so sorry, Mother Ashland. I'll pay for it. I'll work extra shifts. Please, I'm so sorry." But Nomi's face had gone purple with rage. She'd grabbed my suitcase, the same battered case I'd brought into this house 3 years ago as a hopeful young bride, and started throwing my clothes into it. When I tried to explain, tried to beg, she'd shoved me toward the door. "You've been nothing but a burden since my son disappeared. 3 years I've fed you, sheltered you, and this is how you repay me?" I'd looked desperately at Terrence, my father-in-law, standing in the doorway of his study, but he'd just turned his back, his silence somehow worse than Nomi's screaming. Now here I was, 11:30 at night, standing in the rain with my sleeping child and one suitcase, watching the only family I had left lock me out. Before I continue, I just want to say, I share new life stories here every day. If this story touches your heart, a like would mean the world to me. Now let's go on. Trust me, you won't believe where this goes. Greyhound Station, 11:47 p.m. The bus station downtown Atlanta was exactly the kind of place you end up when you've run out of options. Harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow over rows of plastic seats bolted to the floor. The air smelled like diesel fuel, stale coffee, and other people's desperation. I found a corner near the vending machines and sank down onto the cold linoleum floor, my back against the wall. Zay stirred in my arms, whimpering, "Mommy, I'm cold." "I know, baby. I know." I wrapped my thin jacket around him, even though I was shivering myself. My work uniform from the Amazon Fulfillment Center, navy blue polo and khakis, wasn't meant for November nights. "Just close your eyes. Everything's going to be okay." But it wasn't, and I didn't know how to make it okay. I had $43 in my pocket. That was it. 3 years of working 12-hour shifts at the warehouse, and I had $43 because every single paycheck had gone straight to Nomi. "For household expenses," she'd said, "for your room and board." Room and board. As if I'd been a guest. As if I hadn't cooked every meal, scrubbed every floor, done every load of laundry in that 3-story house for 3 years straight. I looked down at Zay's face, his long lashes casting shadows on his cheeks. He looked so much like Deacon. Same warm brown skin, same full lips, same tiny dimple in his left cheek. Deacon. My chest tightened the way it always did when I thought about my husband. 3 years, 2 months, and 4 days since he'd kissed me goodbye and boarded that flight to Chicago. A routine business trip. He was supposed to be back in 3 days. "Daddy's only going to be gone a little while," he'd told Zay, ruffling our son's curls. "You be good for Mommy, okay? I'll bring you back something special." That was the last time we'd heard his voice. The plane had gone down over Lake Michigan. No survivors. No bodies recovered. No wreckage found. Just gone. Like Deacon had been erased from the world. The first few months after, Nomi had been different. Not kind, exactly, but softer. She'd let me grieve. She'd held Zay when he cried for his daddy. She'd even hugged me once at the memorial service and whispered, "We'll get through this together." But something had changed after about 6 months. The softness had turned to ice. The tolerance had become cruelty. She started finding fault with everything. My cooking was too bland. My cleaning wasn't thorough enough. I was raising Zay to be soft, undisciplined. I wasn't contributing enough financially. I was a burden, a freeloader, someone who should be grateful she hadn't been thrown out sooner. "You only gave us one grandson," she'd said to me once, her lip curled in disgust. "One. And now you can't even give us another child to carry on the Ashland name." As if that had been my choice. As if Deacon being dead was somehow my fault. I'd tried so hard. God, I'd tried. I'd worked longer hours, smiled through the insults, apologized for things that weren't my fault. I'd convinced myself that if I just tried harder, if I was just good enough, they'd love me the way Deacon had. But Deacon wasn't here anymore, and without him, I was nothing to them. A security guard walked past, his radio crackling. He glanced at me and Zay, his expression softening for just a moment before he moved on. I wondered what he saw. Just another struggling single mother with nowhere to go. Another statistic. I couldn't go to my parents. They were in their 70s now, living in a tiny house in rural Mississippi on Social Security checks that barely covered their medication. They'd taken out a second mortgage to help pay for my wedding. I couldn't burden them with this. I had no siblings, no close friends. Nomi had made sure of that over the years, criticizing anyone I tried to get close to until I'd just stopped trying. "Deacon, where are you?" I thought, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "I need you. Your son needs you." "Why did you leave us?" 12:15 a.m. The Tesla. I don't know how long I sat there, my tears mixing with the rainwater dripping from my hair. Long enough for Zay to fall back into a deeper sleep. Long enough for my legs to go numb against the cold floor. Then I heard it. The smooth, quiet purr of an electric engine, different from the rumbling diesel buses that came and went. I looked up and saw headlights cutting through the rain, bright modern LED lights attached to a sleek black Tesla Model X. The car glided to a stop right in front of the covered area where I was sitting, close enough that I could see raindrops beating on its glossy paint. My first thought was that someone was lost, looking for directions. But then the driver's window slid down with a soft mechanical whisper, and my heart stopped. The woman behind the wheel had platinum blonde hair cut in a sharp pixie cut, high cheekbones made sharper by expertly applied makeup, and eyes hidden behind Prada sunglasses despite the fact that it was past midnight. She wore a black blazer that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, but I would have recognized her anywhere. River Ashland, Deacon's younger sister. I hadn't seen her in 3 years, not since the memorial service, where she'd stood in the back row wearing all black, her face hidden behind a veil, never speaking to anyone. After the service, she'd disappeared. Nomi had told everyone her daughter had run off to live a shameful life somewhere, that she was dead to this family. And now here she was, looking at me through those expensive sunglasses with an expression I couldn't read. "Get in," she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. It wasn't a question. It was a command. I stared at her, unable to move. My mind spun with questions. How did she know I was here? Why was she here? What did she want? My voice came out as a croak. "River? I said get in." A hint of impatience crept into her tone. "Unless you want your son to catch pneumonia out here." She had a point. Zay was shivering even in his sleep. But I still hesitated. River had never liked me. During the 2 years I'd been married to Deacon before he disappeared, she'd barely spoken to me. At family dinners, she'd answered my attempts at conversation with one-word responses, her eyes always somewhere else. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask. River took off her sunglasses, and for the first time I saw her eyes. They were red-rimmed, exhausted, sad in a way that made my chest ache. "Seela," she said quietly, "I've been watching that house for 6 months, waiting for this to happen. I knew my mother would throw you out eventually. It was only a matter of time." She paused. Now get in the car. We need to talk. And you need to hear what I have to say about my brother. My brother, Deacon. That was all it took. I struggled to my feet, picked up my suitcase with one hand while cradling Zay with the other, and moved toward the Tesla. River popped the rear door open without getting out. The interior was warm, leather-scented, impossibly clean. I settled Zay on the back seat, and he immediately curled into a ball, still sleeping. I got into the passenger seat, my wet clothes immediately soaking into the expensive upholstery. River didn't seem to care. She put the car in drive and pulled away from the station, merging smoothly into the sparse, late-night traffic. We drove in silence for several minutes. I kept stealing glances at her profile, trying to reconcile this composed, clearly successful woman with the sullen girl I remembered from 3 years ago. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. "My place. Well, a friend's place. But I've been staying there." She took a left turn onto Peachtree Street. "You and Zay can stay as long as you need to." "River, I don't understand. Why are you helping me? You never even liked me." A bitter smile crossed her face. "I never disliked you, Seela. I just couldn't let you get close." "Why not?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Because I knew you'd get hurt. I knew what kind of people my parents really were, and I couldn't watch you figure it out while pretending everything was fine." My skin prickled with unease. "What do you mean, what kind of people?" River didn't answer right away. She navigated through downtown Atlanta, the gleaming towers dark except for scattered office lights. Finally, she pulled into the underground garage of a luxury high-rise, the Atlantic Building, one of the most expensive addresses in Midtown. She parked in a reserved spot and turned off the engine. In the sudden silence, she turned to face me fully. "Seela, what I'm about to tell you is going to change everything you thought you knew about my family, about Deacon's disappearance, about the last 3 years of your life." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small digital recorder. "But before I tell you anything, I need you to listen to this." She pressed play. At first, there was just static. Then voices emerged, familiar voices that made my blood run cold. "Stop constantly criticizing the daughter-in-law. Aren't you afraid she'll suspect something?" That was Terrence's voice, irritated and tired. "And if she suspects, what can that country bumpkin do?" Nomi's voice sharp as a razor. "It's a blessing I even let her live in this house. My son is dead. She's worthless now. Don't you see? She and that boy are just 2 hungry mouths bleeding us dry every day." "But she's the mother of our grandson." "Grandson?" Nomi laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Wake up, Terrence. Sterling is gone. The Ashland line ends with us. I'm telling you, I'll find a way to get rid of both of them when the time is right. This house belongs to us, and Deacon's life insurance belongs to us, too. I won't give that woman a single dollar." The recording ended. I sat frozen, my hands gripping the edge of the seat so hard my knuckles went white. The world seemed to tilt around me. I couldn't form words. "When did you—" 8 months ago, River said quietly. I planted a voice-activated recorder in my father's study. I'd suspected for a long time, but I needed proof. "Proof of what?" My voice came out as a whisper. River's eyes met mine, and in them I saw a grief that matched my own. "Proof that Deacon's disappearance wasn't an accident. Proof that our parents are involved. And proof," her voice broke slightly, "that my brother might still be alive." The parking garage spun around me. I gripped the door handle, gasping for air. "Deacon, alive." "That's impossible," I breathed. "The plane crash." "They said there were no survivors." "There was no plane crash, Seela." River pulled out a folder from her bag and opened it on her lap. "That flight existed. Deacon bought a ticket, but he never got on the plane, and I can prove it." She showed me a printout, security camera footage from O'Hare International Airport in Chicago, dated November 18th, 2019. The image was grainy, but clear enough to see a man who looked exactly like Deacon walking through the terminal, 3 hours after his flight had supposedly taken off. "I don't understand." My head was spinning. "I've spent 3 years investigating this, Seela. 3 years piecing together what happened. And it all comes down to one thing. Money. She pulled out another document, a bank statement. Look at this. 3 days before Deacon disappeared, someone withdrew $180,000 from his account. Look at the signature. I looked. The handwriting was unmistakable. Terrence Ashland. My father embezzled from his own son, River said, her voice shaking with controlled rage. And my mother, she lost it all gambling on some cryptocurrency scam. Within a week, that entire $180,000 was gone. I felt sick. But why would Deacon just let them take it? He didn't know. Not until it was too late. River's hands trembled as she pulled out one more document. I found this in my mother's private safe. It's an email draft she never sent, dated 2 weeks before Deacon disappeared. I read it, my vision blurring with tears. Deacon is asking questions about his account. He's going to find out what we did. We need to handle this before he goes to the police. T says he knows someone who can help make this go away. I don't know what that means, but we're out of options. The full weight of it hit me like a physical blow. They killed him. Your parents killed Deacon for money. No, River said firmly. I don't think they killed him. I think they did something worse. She started the car again and began driving up the garage ramp toward her apartment level. What could be worse than killing him? River's jaw clenched. Making him disappear. Making everyone think he's dead while keeping him alive somewhere, silenced and hidden, so they could take everything he built. His business, his life insurance, his legacy. She parked in front of the elevator. And Sela, I think I know where he is. My heart hammered against my ribs. Where? Not where. Who? River turned off the engine. Before Deacon vanished, he was working on the biggest deal of his career, a sustainable housing development in Alpharetta called the Lighthouse Project. He'd spent 2 years designing it, getting permits, securing investors. It was worth millions. I remember, I whispered. He was so excited about it. Right. And then suddenly, he told you the project fell through. Legal issues, he said. River's eyes hardened. That was a lie. The project didn't fall through. It was stolen. By a man named Vincent Thorne, my father's business partner. And I believe Thorne has been holding Deacon prisoner for 3 years to keep him from exposing the theft. I stared at her, my mind reeling. This was insane. This was impossible. But deep in my heart, I knew it was true, because it explained everything. Why Nomi's grief had seemed so performative. Why Terrence avoided my eyes. Why they'd been so eager to declare Deacon dead and move on. We have to find him, I sadly said, my voice stronger than I'd heard it in years. We have to save him, River nodded. I know, but Sela, this is dangerous. These people have already committed God knows how many crimes. They won't hesitate to hurt us if they think we're getting too close. I don't care. I looked back at Zay, still sleeping peacefully in the back seat. Deacon saved me once. He gave me a life, a family, hope. I won't abandon him. I can't. For the first time since I'd known her, River smiled at me. A real smile. Then let's go upstairs, she said, and I'll show you everything I've found. Because if we're going to bring my brother home, we're going to need a plan. River's apartment was nothing like I expected. The 25th floor penthouse was all clean lines and minimalist furniture, a gray sectional sofa, a glass coffee table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering Atlanta skyline. Everything was pristine, almost sterile, like a high-end hotel room rather than someone's home. This way, River said, leading me past the living room to a second bedroom that had been converted into an office. Zay was still asleep, and I'd laid him on the sofa with a soft blanket River had provided. The office was where River really lived, I realized. 3 large monitors sat on a custom desk, surrounded by stacks of folders, printouts, and post-it notes covered in River's neat handwriting. A corkboard on the wall was covered with photographs connected by red string, like something from a crime drama. Welcome to my obsession, River said dryly, gesturing to the chaos. 3 years of my life in one room. I stepped closer to the corkboard. In the center was a photo of Deacon from our wedding day, his smile so bright it hurt to look at. Radiating out from his picture were dozens of other photos. Vincent Thorne entering a sleek office building. Terrence meeting with unknown men in parking lots. Nomi at what looked like a casino. Bank statements, property records, newspaper clippings. "Tell me everything," I said quietly. River pulled out the desk chair for me and perched on the edge of the desk herself. She pulled her platinum hair back into a small ponytail, and suddenly she looked younger, more vulnerable. "It started at Deacon's memorial service," she began. "I was standing in the back watching everyone, and I noticed something odd. My mother was crying, playing the devastated mother perfectly. But my father—" She paused. He looked relieved, not sad, not even pretending to be sad, just relieved, like a weight had been lifted. I remembered that day. I'd been so lost in my own grief I hadn't noticed much of anything. After the service, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, so I started digging. I hacked into my father's email first. Don't look at me like that. I majored in computer engineering at Georgia Tech. It wasn't that hard. "What did you find?" River pulled up a folder on her computer. Bank transfers. Lots of them. Starting about 6 months before Deacon disappeared, my father was moving money around in strange patterns. Small amounts at first. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Always to different accounts. And then, 3 days before Deacon vanished, that huge withdrawal of 180,000. She clicked through several documents. I traced where the money went. My mother put it all into something called Atlanta Coin, a cryptocurrency that promised 20% monthly returns. "Let me guess," I said bitterly. "It was a scam. A Ponzi scheme that collapsed 2 weeks after Deacon disappeared. Everyone lost everything." River's jaw tightened. "But here's what's interesting. I found my mother's diary. Yes, she still keeps a physical diary, like we're living in 1995. She wrote about the investment, how excited she was, how this was going to be the answer to all our problems." "What problems? The Ashlands always seemed comfortable." That's what they wanted everyone to think. But my father's accounting firm was struggling. He'd made some bad investments, lost some major clients. They were drowning in debt, second mortgage on the house, maxed out credit cards. They were desperate. River's voice dropped. Desperate enough to steal from their own son. She pulled out a photocopy of a handwritten journal entry. I recognized Nomi's elegant cursive. Terrence finally agreed to borrow from Dee's account. I told him it's not stealing. We're family, and we'll pay it back as soon as Atlanta Coin pays out. Dee will never even know. He's so busy with that ridiculous lighthouse project anyway. Always talking about sustainable this and eco-friendly that. He needs to focus on real business, not hippie nonsense. My hands shook as I read. She called his dream project hippie nonsense. My mother never understood Deacon. Neither of them did. River's voice was thick with emotion. He was too good for them, too honest, too idealistic. And when their scheme fell apart, she trailed off. When did Deacon find out? River pulled up an email chain. November 12th, 2019, 6 days before he disappeared. His bank sent him an alert about unusual account activity. He called my father immediately. She played an audio file, a phone call that had been recorded, probably by Deacon himself. "Dad, I just got a fraud alert from Bank of America. Someone withdrew $180,000 from my business account. Do you know anything about this?" "Son, I can explain. The signature says Terrence Ashland. You're the only other person authorized on that account. Dad, please tell me you didn't." "Deacon, listen to me. Your mother and I were in a tight spot. We borrowed the money temporarily. We were going to pay you back." "Borrowed? You stole from me. That was the seed money for the lighthouse project. Dad, I have investors counting on me, contractors ready to break ground. We'll fix this. Just give us a few weeks. There's nothing to fix. The money's gone, isn't it? Mom gambled it away on some crypto scam." A long pause, then Deacon's voice, cold and hard in a way I'd never heard it. "I'm calling the police." "Deacon, please. Don't do that to your own parents. We can work this out as a family. Family? You destroyed my business, Dad. You stole my future. My son's future. Another pause. I need time to think. I'm going to Chicago for a few days. When I get back, we're going to have a very serious conversation about how you're going to make this right. The recording ended. I sat in stunned silence. He was going to turn them in. Maybe. Or maybe he was just trying to scare them straight. River's eyes were wet. Either way, my parents panicked, and that's when Vincent Thorne enters the picture. She pulled up a photo of a man in his early 50s. Silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Vincent Thorne, real estate developer, property investor, and according to 3 separate lawsuits that were settled out of court, a man with no problem using intimidation and violence to get what he wants. How does he connect to your father? They went to college together, stayed in touch over the years. My father did accounting work for some of Thorne's companies, always the legitimate ones, nothing that would raise red flags. But I dug deeper. River clicked through more files. Thorne has a reputation in certain circles. If you need something to go away, a business rival, a whistleblower, a problem, Thorne knows people who can make it happen. My stomach turned. You think your parents asked Thorne to kill Deacon? No, I think they asked him to scare Deacon into silence. But Thorne saw an opportunity. River pulled up a property deed. Look at this. Filed December 3rd, 2019, 2 weeks after Deacon vanished. Vincent Thorne registered a new LLC called Lighthouse Development Group. And look at the project description. I read it, my vision blurring with rage. It was Deacon's project. Every single detail, the location in Alpharetta, the sustainable building materials, the green energy systems, even the architectural style. Everything Deacon had spent 2 years developing. He stole it, I whispered. Thorne stole Deacon's entire project. And he's making millions from it. The development broke ground 8 months ago. Luxury townhomes starting at $800,000 each. 40 units sold in the first phase alone. River's voice shook. That's $32 million. For my brother's stolen dream. I stood up, pacing the small office. My mind was racing. But why would Thorne need to keep Deacon alive? If he wanted to steal the project, why not kill him and take it? River met my eyes. Because Deacon was smart. He didn't keep all his project files in one place. He had backups, insurance policies, evidence of his authorship scattered everywhere. If Deacon died and those files surfaced, Thorne's theft would be exposed. But if Deacon simply disappeared, if everyone thought he died in a plane crash, then those files are just the lost work of a dead man. Meaningless. Unless Deacon comes back. Exactly. So Thorne needs Deacon alive but silenced. Hidden away somewhere, probably drugged or restrained, unable to contact anyone or expose the truth. River's hands clenched into fists. And my parents either don't know or don't care, as long as they get their cut. I felt like I was going to be sick. 3 years. Deacon's been held prisoner for 3 years while we thought he was dead. I know. And Selah, there's more. River pulled out another document, a life insurance policy. My parents took out a $500,000 policy on Deacon 6 months before he disappeared. In Georgia, you can have someone declared legally dead after 3 years of disappearance. That deadline is in 2 weeks. The pieces clicked together. That's why Nomi threw me out tonight. She's getting ready to declare Deacon dead and collect the insurance money, and I was in the way. You and Zay both. As Deacon's widow, you'd have a legal claim to that money. As his son, Zay would inherit Deacon's estate. My parents can't have that. River stood up and put her hands on my shoulders. Selah, they were going to find a way to separate you from Zay, declare you an unfit mother, take custody of him, and cut you out completely. I've seen the lawyer letters they've been drafting. Rage flooded through me, hot and clean and clarifying. For 3 years, I'd been weak. I'd been a victim. I'd let Nomi walk all over me because I thought I deserved it, because I thought I owed them something for taking me in, but they hadn't taken me in out of kindness. They'd kept me close to control me, to make sure I didn't ask too many questions, to make sure I stayed broken and grateful and quiet. Well, I wasn't quiet anymore. "We're going to find him," I said, my voice steady and cold. "We're going to find Deacon, and we're going to make them pay for every single thing they've done." River smiled, fierce and proud. "Now you sound like an Ashland." 3 days later, Thursday afternoon, the plan was simple, at least in theory. I would go back to the Ashland house, beg for forgiveness, and play the role of the broken, repentant daughter-in-law. While I was there, I would search Deacon's old office for any remaining files or evidence he might have hidden, anything that could tell us where Thorne was keeping him. River had given me a tiny recording device disguised as a button on my shirt and a GPS tracker in my watch. If anything went wrong, she'd know exactly where I was. "Are you sure about this?" River asked for the 10th time as she drove me toward the house. "Once you're inside, you're on your own. I can't exactly come knocking on the door. My mother would slam it in my face." "I'm sure." I checked my reflection in the visor mirror. I'd made myself look as pathetic as possible. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing my oldest, most threadbare clothes. I looked like exactly what Nomi wanted to see, a desperate woman with no options. "I can do this. The most important thing is Deacon's office. My parents converted it into a guest room after he disappeared, but I'm betting they didn't throw everything away. Look for a locked filing cabinet, a safe, anywhere he might have hidden backup drives or documents." I nodded, my heart hammering. "What about Zay?" "He's safe with me. I'll take him to the aquarium, get him some lunch. He won't even know you're gone." River pulled up to the corner of the street, a block away from the house. "Call me every 2 hours. If you miss a check-in, I'm calling the police." "Understood." I got out of the car and walked the remaining block alone. The Ashland house looked exactly as I'd left it 3 days ago, imposing, elegant, cold. The house where I'd spent my wedding night, where Zay had been born, where Deacon had kissed me goodbye for the last time. The house that had become my prison. I took a deep breath and knocked on the front door. Nomi answered, her expression shifting from surprise to suspicion. "What are you doing here?" I dropped to my knees on the wet cement porch, just as I'd rehearsed with River. Let the tears come. They weren't hard to summon. "Mother Ashland, please, I'm so sorry. I have nowhere else to go. You should have thought of that before." "I was wrong." I kept my head bowed, playing the part. "I've been ungrateful and foolish. You've done so much for me, and I repaid you with carelessness. Please, I'm begging you. Give me another chance. I'll work harder. I'll be better. I can't survive out there on my own." I could feel her looking down at me, considering. The silence stretched out for what felt like an eternity. Then, "Get up." I raised my head. Nomi's face was hard, but there was a glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes. She liked seeing me broken. It confirmed everything she'd always believed about me. "You can come back," she said slowly. "But things are going to be different. You'll sleep in the basement. You'll work from 6 in the morning until 10 at night. You'll give me every penny you earn, and you'll speak only when spoken to. Understood?" "Yes, Mother Ashland. Thank you. Thank you so much." She stepped aside to let me in. As I crossed the threshold, I caught a glimpse of Terrence in his study, watching. Our eyes met for just a second, and I saw something in his face. Guilt? Fear? But then he looked away, and the moment passed. I was back inside. Now I just had to find what Deacon had left behind. Thursday night, 9:30 p.m. The first 2 days back in the house were exactly as Nomi had promised. Brutal. She had me scrubbing floors, washing windows, cooking elaborate meals, doing load after load of laundry. By Thursday night, every muscle in my body ached, but I'd been watching, learning their patterns. Every Thursday, Terrence went to his Veterans Club meeting from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Nomi had started going to bed early, around 9 p.m., to watch her reality TV shows in her room. That gave me a narrow window. At 9:45 p.m., I crept up the stairs as quietly as I could. The guest room, Deacon's former office, was at the end of the hall. I'd noticed Nomi kept it locked, which only confirmed that there was something inside worth protecting. I pulled out the thin piece of metal I'd taken from the garage, a straightened paper clip. River had shown me how to pick simple locks. "It's easier than you think," she'd said. "Most residential locks are basically jokes." My hands trembled as I inserted the paperclip into the keyhole. It took 3 tries, my heart hammering the entire time. But finally, I felt the lock give. The door swung open. The room looked nothing like Deacon's office anymore. The walls had been repainted a bland beige. His desk was gone, replaced by a queen-size bed with a floral comforter. His bookshelves had been replaced with a generic dresser, but they hadn't gotten rid of everything. In the closet, behind hanging winter coats, I found a stack of cardboard boxes. My pulse quickened. I pulled the first one out and opened it. Inside were Deacon's things: his college textbooks, his architectural magazines, photo albums from our wedding, and at the bottom, wrapped in bubble wrap, a small fireproof safe. The safe had a 4-digit combination lock. I tried our anniversary, 0612. Nothing. Zay's birthday, 0823. Nothing. I was running out of ideas when I remembered something Deacon used to say. "You and Zay are my whole world." I tried Zay's birthday backward, 2-3-0-8. The safe clicked open. Inside was a USB drive and a single photograph, the picture from our wedding day that used to sit on Deacon's desk. I grabbed both, shoved them in my pocket, and quickly repacked everything. I was closing the closet door when I heard footsteps in the hallway. My blood turned to ice. It was too early for Terrence to be back. And those weren't Nomi's footsteps. These were heavier, slower. A man's footsteps. I looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide. The bed was too low to fit under. The closet was full of boxes. The only option was... The footsteps stopped right outside the door. The handle turned. I pressed myself against the wall behind the door, holding my breath, praying whoever it was would just glance in and leave. The door swung open. A man stepped inside. Not Terrence. Someone I'd never seen before. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive charcoal suit. He pulled out his phone, using its flashlight to scan the room. "She was here," he said into the phone. "The door was unlocked. I told you she'd come looking eventually." A pause as he listened to whoever was on the other end. "No, she's not here now. But she took something. The safe is open." Another pause. "Yes, sir. I'll handle it. If she contacts the wife or the kid, we'll know." He ended the call and stepped back into the hallway, closing the door behind him. I waited, counting to 100 before I dared to move. My legs were shaking so badly I could barely walk. I crept to the door, listened, then slipped out and down the stairs as fast as I dared. I made it to the basement room where I was sleeping, locked the door, and pulled out my phone with trembling hands. I texted River, "Need extraction. Now. They know." Her response came within seconds. 20 minutes. Back door. Be ready. I grabbed my bag. I'd kept it packed, just in case, and pulled out the USB drive and photograph. In the dim light of my phone, I examined the photo more closely. That's when I saw it. The edge of the photo was slightly loose from its frame. I carefully peeled back the corner, and my breath caught. Hidden between the photo and the backing was a small slip of paper. On it, in Deacon's handwriting, were 2 lines. "If you're reading this, I'm in trouble. Trust only CM. He has everything you need. The lighthouse will guide you home." CM. I didn't know who that was, but I was damn well going to find out. 20 minutes later, Caleb Morrison's office, downtown Atlanta. River had figured it out on the drive. CM has to be Caleb Morrison. He was Deacon's lawyer and best friend from college. If Deacon trusted anyone with information, it would be Caleb. Now we sat in Caleb Morrison's office at 11 p.m., having convinced the security guard that it was an emergency. Caleb himself looked like he hadn't slept in days. His tie was loose. his dark hair disheveled, stubble covering his jaw. "I wondered when you'd finally come," he said quietly, after I'd explained everything. "I've been waiting 3 years for this conversation." "You knew?" I stared at him. "You knew Deacon was alive and you never said anything?" "I didn't know, not for certain." Caleb pulled out a bottle of whiskey from his desk drawer and poured himself a shot. "But I suspected. And Deacon made me promise that if anything happened to him, I wouldn't go to you until you came to me. He said it was too dangerous." "Tell us everything," River demanded. Caleb downed his shot and began. "October 2019, Deacon came to me furious. He'd just discovered your parents had embezzled from him." He nodded at River. "He wanted to press charges, but he also wanted to investigate first, find out exactly how much they'd taken and where it went. That's when he discovered the lighthouse project theft," I said. "Exactly. Vincent Thorne had been his development partner. Deacon owned the concept, the designs, the permits. Thorne was supposed to provide capital and construction oversight, but Deacon found evidence that Thorne was planning to push him out, steal the project, and claim it as his own work." Caleb pulled out a file folder. "Deacon documented everything: emails, recordings, financial transfers. He was building a case against Thorne and your parents." "What happened?" River's voice was tight. "Deacon told me he was going to disappear for a while, make everyone think he was dead. He said it was the only way to gather the final pieces of evidence without Thorne knowing he was being investigated. He bought a plane ticket to Chicago, checked in at the airport, then walked right back out and caught a bus to Asheville instead." My head spun. So the plane crash was just a cover story? Deacon created his own disappearance? That was the plan. He was supposed to lie low in Asheville for a few weeks, document Thorne's theft as it happened in real time, then resurface with evidence and press charges. Caleb's face darkened. But something went wrong. 3 days after he disappeared, I got one email from him. Just 2 lines. "They found me. Thorne knows. Protect Selah." "And then?" I whispered. "Nothing. Complete silence for 3 years. Caleb's hands shook as he poured another drink. "I hired private investigators. I searched everywhere. But Thorne is smart. He has connections, resources. If he's holding Deacon somewhere, he's hidden him well." River leaned forward. "But you said Deacon gave you everything." "What did you mean?" Caleb opened his desk drawer and pulled out a large envelope. 2 weeks before he disappeared, Deacon gave me this. He said if anything happened to him, I should give it to Selah on the 3-year anniversary of his disappearance. That's in 2 weeks. He slid the envelope across the desk. My name was written on it in Deacon's handwriting. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside was another USB drive, a stack of documents, and a handwritten letter. I recognized Deacon's writing immediately, and tears blurred my vision as I began to read. "My dearest Selah, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened. I'm either dead or being held somewhere, unable to come home to you and our beautiful son. I need you to know that everything I did to protect you both. Thorne is dangerous, more dangerous than I realized at first. He threatened you, Selah. He said if I didn't back off the lighthouse project, he'd hurt you and Zay. I couldn't let that happen. My parents betrayed me in the worst way possible, but I still believed my father would protect you if I was gone. I was wrong about that. I'm sorry." On this USB drive, you'll find everything. Every piece of evidence I collected against Thorne and my parents. Financial records, recorded conversations, property deeds, witness statements. Enough to put them all in prison. But more importantly, there's a video file labeled for Selah. Watch it alone. Trust what you see. I love you more than words can say. You are the lighthouse that has guided me through every dark moment. Find me, Selah. I'm waiting for you to bring me home. Forever yours, Deacon. I couldn't breathe. River put her arm around me as I sobbed. There's more, Caleb said gently. He plugged the USB drive into his laptop and pulled up a folder. Inside were dozens of files, but one stood out, for Selah. MP4, he turned the laptop toward me. I've never watched this. Deacon said it was for your eyes only. My hand trembled as I clicked play. The video opened on Deacon's face. My Deacon, looking tired but alive, sitting in what looked like a cheap motel room. The timestamp read November 15th, 2019, 3 days before he disappeared. "Hey, baby," he said softly to the camera. "If you're watching this, then things didn't go according to plan. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He took a deep breath. "I'm in Asheville right now. Tomorrow I'm meeting with a witness who worked on Thorne's construction crew. He's ready to testify that Thorne has been using my designs without permission, claiming them as his own work. This testimony will be the final piece I need. But Selah, if something happens to me before I can come home, you need to know where to look. There's a property Thorne owns on Lake Lure, about 40 minutes from Asheville. It's registered under an LLC called Mountain Vista Holdings. The address is 4792 Lakeshore Drive." He leaned closer to the camera. "That's where he takes people who become problems for him. I found 3 other cases: business partners who threatened to expose him, a contractor who knew too much. They all disappeared, and they all were last seen near that property. If I disappear, that's where I'll be. I know it. And Selah," his voice broke, "come find me. No matter how long it takes, I'll wait for you. I'll always wait for you." The video ended. I sat in stunned silence. Then I stood up, my decision made. "We're going to Lake Lure," I said. "Tonight. Right now. We're going to get my husband back." River stood beside me. "I'm coming with you." Caleb grabbed his coat. "So am I, and I'm calling the FBI on the way. We're going to need backup." As we rushed out of the office, I clutched Deacon's letter to my chest. I'd spent 3 years mourning him, 3 years believing he was gone forever. But my husband was alive. He was waiting for me, and I was going to bring him home. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, a ribbon of darkness cut only by our headlights and the occasional passing truck. River drove with both hands gripped tight on the wheel, her jaw set in concentration. Caleb sat in the passenger seat, his laptop open, coordinating with the FBI agent he'd contacted. Special Agent Jennifer Oakes, who specialized in kidnapping cases. I sat in the back, Deacon's letter clutched in my hands, reading it over and over until I'd memorized every word. 3 years. My husband had been held captive for 3 years while I'd mourned him, while Zay had grown from a toddler into a little boy who barely remembered his father's face. "The FBI is mobilizing a team," Caleb said, his phone pressed to his ear. "They'll meet us at a staging point 2 miles from the property. Agent Oakes says we absolutely cannot approach the location ourselves. It's too dangerous." "How long until they're ready?" River asked. "They're coming from the Charlotte field office. 2 hours, maybe 3. 3 hours? I leaned forward. "Deacon could be dying in there right now. We can't wait 3 hours. "Selah, we have to." Caleb turned to look at me, his expression pained. "If Thorne has guards, if the property is secured, we could get Deacon killed by rushing in unprepared. The FBI knows what they're doing." I knew he was right, but every minute felt like an eternity. My phone buzzed. A text from River's friend Mika, who was watching Zay. "Little man is sleeping peacefully. Don't worry about him. Go get his daddy." Tears pricked my eyes. Zay, my sweet boy who still sometimes woke up crying for his father, who'd stopped asking when Daddy was coming home because the answer was always never. What would I tell him if we were too late? How would I explain that we'd found Deacon only to lose him again? "Tell me about the property," I said, trying to focus on something concrete. "What do we know about it?" Caleb pulled up files on his laptop. Mountain Vista Holdings purchased the Lake Lure property in 2015. It's listed as a private retreat, 5,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms, sits on 20 acres. Very isolated. The nearest neighbor is half a mile away. He scrolled through satellite images. There's a main house, a separate guest cabin, and what looks like a boathouse down by the water. "Security?" River asked. "No alarm system registered with the county, but that doesn't mean much. Thorne could have private security that's not on any official records." Caleb zoomed in on the property. "There's only one road in and out. If Thorne has people watching, they'll see us coming from a mile away. So we don't use the road, I said quietly. Both of them turned to look at me. The boathouse, I continued, thinking out loud. We approach from the lake. It's the middle of the night. They won't be expecting anyone from that direction. River's eyes lit up. There's a public boat launch about 2 miles down the shore. We could rent a kayak or a small boat. Absolutely not. Caleb's voice was firm. That's exactly the kind of cowboy move that gets people killed. We wait for the FBI. Caleb's right, River admitted reluctantly. As much as I hate it, I sat back, frustrated. They were both right, but the thought of Deacon so close, possibly hurt or sick or worse, made me want to scream. Lake Lure staging area, 5:23 a.m. The FBI arrived just as the sky was beginning to lighten in the east. Agent Jennifer Oakes was a tall black woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened to everything we had to say, reviewed Deacon's evidence files, and made her assessment quickly. This is enough for a warrant, she said, closing Caleb's laptop. More than enough. Mr. Thorne is going to have a lot of explaining to do. So we can go in? I asked anxiously. My team can go in. You 3 stay here. She held up a hand as I started to protest. Mrs. Ashland, I understand you want to be there when we find your husband, but this is a tactical operation. We don't know if Thorne has hired security, if the property is booby-trapped, or if your husband is even there. I can't have civilians in the line of fire. She's right, Seela, Caleb said gently. Agent Oakes softened slightly. I promise you, the moment we secure the property and locate your husband, if he's there, you'll be the first person I call. But I need you to trust me to do my job. I wanted to argue. Every fiber of my being wanted to run to that house right now. But I looked at River and Caleb, both watching me with concern, and I knew they wouldn't let me do anything reckless. Okay, I whispered. Just please find him. We will. Agent Oakes put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Wait here. We'll be back soon. I watched as she and her team, 8 agents in tactical gear, loaded into 3 black SUVs and disappeared down the road toward the lake. Then there was nothing to do but wait. 6:15 a.m. The sun was fully up now, painting the lake in shades of gold and pink. It should have been beautiful. Instead, every minute that ticked by felt like torture. River paced back and forth along the edge of the clearing where we'd parked. Caleb sat on the hood of his car, his leg bouncing nervously. I stood apart from both of them, my arms wrapped around myself, praying harder than I'd ever prayed in my life. Please let him be there. Please let him be alive. Please let us not be too late. My phone rang, making me jump. Agent Oakes. We've secured the property, she said without preamble. No resistance, Thorne wasn't here, but Mrs. Ashland, she paused. We found him. My knees nearly gave out. Is he? He's alive. Barely conscious. Appears to be heavily sedated. We're calling for an ambulance now. But Seela, her voice gentled. You should prepare yourself. He's not in good shape. I'm coming there, right now. I was already moving toward River's car. The ambulance will take him to Lake Lure Regional Hospital. Meet us there. It'll be faster than coming to the property. We need to preserve the scene as evidence anyway. Okay, thank you. Thank you so... My voice broke. We'll see you at the hospital, Agent Oakes said, and hung up. I turned to River and Caleb, tears streaming down my face. They found him. He's alive. 10. Lake Lure Regional Hospital, 7:02 a.m. The emergency room was a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells. Agent Oakes met us in the waiting area, her expression grim. The paramedics are stabilizing him now. The doctor will come out to talk to you shortly. She gestured for us to sit. I need to prepare you for what you're going to see. My heart hammered. How bad is it? Your husband has been held in a 10-by-12 room in the basement of that property for what appears to be the entire 3 years. No windows, minimal furniture, just a cot, a bucket, and a chair. Agent Oaks's voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the anger beneath it. He's severely malnourished, probably weighing about 130. He has bed sores, muscle atrophy, and signs of long-term psychological trauma. River made a choked sound. Caleb put his head in his hands. But the worst part, Agent Oaks continued, is that we found evidence of systematic drugging. There were dozens of empty prescription bottles in the room, sedatives, anti-anxiety medications, even antipsychotics, all in doses far exceeding therapeutic levels. "What does that mean?" I whispered. "It means Vincent Thorne has been keeping your husband in a chemically induced state of confusion and compliance. The medical team believes Deacon has been sedated almost continuously for 3 years. She paused. "Mrs. Ashland, his cognitive function may be severely impaired. He may not recognize you. He may not remember much of anything." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent 3 years dreaming of the moment Deacon would come home, the moment he'd wrap his arms around me and tell me everything was going to be okay. But that might not happen. The man I loved might be gone, even if his body was still alive. "Can I see him?" My voice sounded distant, not like my own. "Soon. The doctors are running tests, getting fluids into him, trying to stabilize his vitals." Agent Oaks stood. "I'll let you know the moment they're ready for you." 8:47 a.m. Dr. Sarah Chen was young, Asian American, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She found me in the waiting room, where I'd been sitting motionless for the past hour while River and Caleb made phone calls and tried to keep me from falling apart. "Mrs. Ashland, you can see your husband now." I stood on shaking legs. How is he?" "Stable for now. His vitals are improving with IV fluids and nutrition. But I have to be honest with you. The next few days are critical. His body has been through severe trauma. There's a risk of organ failure, infection, and withdrawal symptoms from the sudden cessation of the sedatives." "But he'll recover?" River asked, standing beside me. "Physically, with time and proper care, yes. Most of the damage can be healed." Dr. Chen hesitated. "But the psychological impact of 3 years of captivity and forced sedation, that's much harder to predict. He's going to need extensive therapy, possibly for years, and there's no guarantee he'll ever fully recover his memory or cognitive function." "I understand. I didn't, not really, but I needed to see him. Please, I need to see my husband." Dr. Chen led me down a hallway to the ICU. At the door to room 3, she stopped. "He's awake, but very confused. He's been asking for someone named Sela, which is a good sign. It means he has some memory intact. But don't be alarmed if he doesn't quite seem like himself. The drugs are still working their way out of his system." She opened the door. The man in the hospital bed looked nothing like the Deacon I remembered. He'd always been strong, athletic, 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and warm brown skin that glowed with health. The man in the bed was gaunt, his skin sallow and stretched tight over visible bones. His once short hair had grown long and matted. A beard covered the lower half of his face, streaked with gray that hadn't been there 3 years ago. But his eyes, when they met mine, I saw recognition flicker in those familiar dark brown eyes. "Sela?" His voice was a raspy whisper, barely audible. "Deacon?" I moved to his bedside, tears streaming down my face. "Oh God. Deacon, I'm here. I'm here." I reached for his hand, so thin, so fragile, and held it gently. He stared at me like he couldn't quite believe I was real. "You found me," he whispered. "You found the lighthouse." "I did. I found you, and I'm never letting you go again." I leaned down, pressing my forehead to his. "I love you so much." "Zay." His grip on my hand tightened with surprising strength. "Our son. He's safe. He's perfect. He's with a friend, waiting to see you." Tears leaked from the corners of Deacon's eyes. "I couldn't protect you. I tried. But Thorne, he found me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Shh, no. None of this is your fault." I stroked his matted hair back from his forehead. "We're together now. That's all that matters. My parents. His voice turned bitter. They helped him. My own father handed me over to Thorne like I was nothing. I know. I know everything. I didn't want to burden him with details right now. River and Caleb, they're here. They helped me find you. We have evidence against everyone who did this to you. They're going to pay, Deacon. I promise you, they're all going to pay. He closed his eyes, fresh tears rolling down his gaunt cheeks. 3 years. I lost 3 years. We'll get them back. I pressed a kiss to his forehead. However long it takes, we'll get them back together. 3 days later, Saturday morning. Deacon's condition improved slowly. The doctors weaned him off the sedatives, started him on physical therapy to rebuild his atrophied muscles, and began the delicate work of addressing the psychological trauma. River and I took turns staying with him around the clock. Caleb coordinated with the FBI and the district attorney's office, building the criminal case against Vincent Thorne and my in-laws. On Saturday morning, I finally felt ready to bring Zay to the hospital. I'd tried to prepare him. Sitting in River's apartment the night before, I'd shown him recent photos that Agent Oakes had taken at the hospital. Pictures of Deacon cleaned up, his beard shaved, his hair cut short again. But even in the photos, he looked so different from the strong, healthy father Zay barely remembered. "Is Daddy sick?" Zay had asked, his little forehead creased with worry. "Daddy was hurt by some bad people," I'd explained carefully. "But he's getting better now. He might look different than you remember, and he might be confused sometimes. But he loves you so much, and he's been waiting to see you." Now, standing outside Deacon's hospital room with Zay's small hand in mine, I sent up a silent prayer that this would go okay. "Ready, baby?" I asked. Zay nodded, but his grip on my hand tightened. We walked in. Deacon was sitting up in bed today, looking stronger than he had 3 days ago. When he saw Zay, his whole face transformed, the wariness and confusion melting into pure love. "Zay," his voice broke on our son's name. "My boy, come here." But Zay hesitated, half hiding behind my legs. He was scared. I could feel him trembling. Deacon's expression crumpled. "It's okay. I know I look different. I know I've been gone a long time." "Are you really my daddy?" Zay asked in a small voice. "I am. I promise I am." Deacon held out one thin hand. "I know it's hard to remember me. You were so little when I had to go away. But I never forgot you. Not for one single day." Zay looked up at me, seeking reassurance. I nodded encouragingly. Slowly, cautiously, Zay approached the bed. Deacon carefully reached out and touched his son's curly hair, the same texture and color as his own. "You got so big," Deacon whispered. "The last time I held you, you barely came up to my knee. Now look at you, a real little man." "Mommy said bad people hurt you," Zay said. "Did they hurt you real bad?" "Yeah, buddy, they did. But I'm okay now, because Mommy found me and brought me home." Deacon's eyes met mine over Zay's head, full of gratitude and love. "And now we're going to be a family again." "Can you come home with us?" Zay asked hopefully. "Not yet. I have to stay here a little longer while the doctors help me get strong again. But soon, I promise. Soon." Deacon opened his arms. "Can I have a hug? I've been waiting 3 years for one." Zay hesitated for just a moment longer. Then he climbed carefully onto the bed and wrapped his small arms around his father's neck. Deacon held him like he was the most precious thing in the world, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I turned away to give them privacy, wiping at my own tears. River stood in the doorway, crying too. "They're going to be okay," she whispered to me. "All of you are going to be okay." I wanted to believe her, but I knew the road ahead would be long and difficult. Deacon had years of physical and psychological healing ahead of him. Zay would need help understanding and processing everything that had happened, and we'd all have to navigate the criminal trial against Thorne and the Ashlands. But for now, watching my husband hold our son for the first time in 3 years, I let myself feel hope. 6 months later, Federal Courthouse, Atlanta. The courtroom was packed. I sat in the front row between River and Caleb with Deacon beside me. He was stronger now. He'd gained back 30 pounds, his muscle tone was returning, and the fog from the drugs had mostly lifted. But he still had nightmares. He still flinched at loud noises, and there were still gaps in his memory that might never fully return. Today was sentencing day. Vincent Thorne had been found guilty on all counts: kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, assault, fraud, and racketeering. The evidence Deacon had collected, combined with what the FBI found at the Lake Lure property, had been overwhelming. Terrence and Nomi Ashland had taken plea deals, agreeing to testify against Thorne in exchange for reduced sentences. Terrence would serve 8 years, Nomi 5. I'd visited Nomi in jail once, 2 months ago. She'd looked smaller somehow, diminished. The expensive clothes and imperious attitude were gone. She was just a frightened older woman in an orange jumpsuit. "I never meant for it to go this far," she'd said, crying. "I just wanted the money back. I didn't know Thorne would... I didn't know." I'd looked at her for a long moment, the woman who'd made my life hell for 3 years, who'd thrown me out into the rain with a 5-year-old child, who'd stood by while her son was tortured and drugged in a basement. "You made choices," I'd said quietly. "Now you live with them." I hadn't visited again. Now Judge Patricia Morrison looked down at Vincent Thorne from the bench. He stood in his expensive suit, flanked by his lawyers, his face expressionless. "Mr. Thorne," the judge said, "your crimes are among the most heinous this court has ever seen. You systematically destroyed a man's life, stole his work, and held him captive for 3 years while his family believed him dead. You showed no remorse, no mercy, and no basic human decency." She paused. "The prosecution has recommended 25 years. I'm sentencing you to 40 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. May God have mercy on your soul." The gavel came down. Deacon's hand found mine and squeezed tight. I heard River let out a shaky breath of relief. It was over. Finally, it was over. 1 year later, Tybee Island, Georgia. The lighthouse stood tall and proud against the blue summer sky, its black and white stripes gleaming in the sun. Waves crashed against the beach below, and seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries mingling with Zay's laughter as he ran through the surf. Deacon and I stood at the base of the lighthouse, his arm around my waist. He still had moments of darkness, times when the memories of those 3 years came back to haunt him. But he was healing. We both were. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For being strong enough to fight when I couldn't. For being the lighthouse that guided me home." He turned to face me, his hands cupping my face. "I don't know how I got so lucky to marry someone like you." "We're both lucky," I said, standing on my toes to kiss him. "We found each other again. Some people don't get that chance." "Daddy, Mommy, come look!" Zay was waving at us from the water's edge, holding up a perfect conch shell. We walked down to join our son, and Deacon scooped him up, spinning him around until Zay shrieked with delight. The same child who'd been scared of his father a year ago now couldn't get enough of him. They'd rebuilt their bond slowly, carefully, with patience and love. River had found peace, too. She'd started her own cybersecurity firm, using her skills to help other victims of fraud and cybercrime. She'd even cautiously reconnected with Terrence, visiting him in prison every few months. Nomi she hadn't forgiven yet. Maybe she never would. But she was working on letting go of the anger. As for the Lighthouse Project, Deacon had sold the designs to a sustainable development company for $12 million. We'd used some of the money to pay for his medical care and therapy, some to set up a college fund for Zay, and some to create a foundation that helped families of kidnapping victims. The rest we'd put toward buying a small house here, near this lighthouse. A place where we could start fresh, build new memories to replace the painful ones. "What are you thinking about?" Deacon asked, noticing my faraway expression. Just how far we've come. A year ago, I was sitting in that bus station thinking my life was over, thinking I'd lost everything that mattered. I leaned against him. And now look at us. You know what I've learned? Deacon said, watching Zay chase the waves. Darkness doesn't last forever. Even when you're trapped in it for years, convinced there's no way out, there's always light somewhere. You just have to hold on long enough to find it. Or let it find you, I added. He smiled, that familiar, beautiful smile I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. Or that. We stood there together as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. Our sun played in the waves. The lighthouse stood guard behind us, and for the first time in 3 years I felt completely, utterly at peace. The storm had passed, the nightmare was over, and we, all 3 of us, were finally, truly home. Epilogue. 5 years later. I'm often asked how we did it, how we survived something that would have destroyed most families, how we found the strength to keep going when everything seemed hopeless. The truth is, there's no simple answer. Healing isn't linear. There were setbacks and struggles. There were nights when Deacon woke up screaming, convinced he was back in that basement. Days when Zay would suddenly get quiet and withdrawn, processing trauma he was too young to fully understand. But we faced it together. We got therapy, individual and family. We talked about the hard things instead of burying them. We gave each other grace on the bad days and celebrated the good ones. Deacon never fully recovered all his memories from those 3 years. There are gaps that will always be there, moments lost to the drugs and the trauma. But he made new memories with us, better ones. Zay is 10 now, a smart, sensitive kid who wants to be an architect like his dad. He knows what happened to our family. We've told him the truth in age-appropriate ways, but it doesn't define him. He's not a victim. He's a survivor, and he's stronger for it. As for me, I learned something important during those dark years. I'm stronger than I ever knew. Stronger than the girl who let her mother-in-law walk all over her. Stronger than the woman who thought she couldn't survive without someone else's approval. I found my own light, and I learned that sometimes the lighthouse isn't outside you. It's inside you all along. You just have to be brave enough to let it shine. People ask if I've forgiven Terrence and Nomi. The honest answer is, I'm working on it. Not for them, for me. Because I refuse to let their betrayal poison the rest of my life. They made their choices. They're living with the consequences. Terrence will be released next year after serving his full sentence. He writes to Deacon sometimes. Long, rambling letters full of apologies and regrets. Deacon hasn't responded yet. Maybe he will someday. Maybe he won't. It's his choice to make. Nomi got out last year. She moved to Florida, far from Atlanta and the wreckage of her old life. River sees her occasionally. I don't. Vincent Thorne will die in prison. He's 62 now, serving year 6 of his 40-year sentence. I don't think about him anymore. He doesn't deserve the space in my head. These days, our life is beautifully ordinary. Deacon runs his foundation and consults on green building projects. I went back to school and got my teaching degree. I work with at-risk kids now, helping them find their own inner strength. River is Zay's favorite aunt, teaching him coding and taking him on adventures. We still visit the Tybee Island Lighthouse every summer. It's become our tradition, our reminder of how far we've come, how much we've overcome. And sometimes when the sun sets just right and the light from the lighthouse begins to sweep across the water, I think about that night at the bus station. The night I thought I'd lost everything. I had no idea then that I was about to find it all again. So if you're reading this and you're in your own darkness right now, whether it's betrayal, loss, fear, or despair, I want you to know, hold on, the light is coming. Maybe it's just around the corner. Maybe it's years away. But it's coming, and you're stronger than you know. Strong enough to weather the storm. Strong enough to find your way home. I promise you that, because I did it. And if I can, so can you. The lighthouse is always there, even when you can't see it through the fog. You just have to keep moving toward it. One step at a time.